We will wait for 5 more minutes and then we will start. Today, Veerabhadrananda Swamiji has to go to Bangalore to attend a function in connection with Swamiji's Samadhi in Bangalore Ashram. So I have requested Lakshmi Didi to speak today. She will be speaking something very relevant to the subject, the thought which we have been carrying, the divine touch of Swami Vivekananda. And because of communication which we received a bit late, Swamiji sent me message yesterday. I could not intimate to the people about it, but then having started, we thought we will not stop the class. We will have Lakshmi Didi to speak on the occasion.
Here?
Yeah, you can sit here. Here you can sit. That you can
Well, in any case, if there are
there.
here.
You can sit here. Okay. This you don't see. This is not.
Which is not very good. Namaste to all.
We will start with a prayer.
In the prayer anumadi.
Okay.
Brahmacharya Vrati Dandi Sarva Vedanta Pandita Srimad Viveka Yogi Imam Prachodayadu Sarvada. Namaste to all of you. Today, due to Swamiji's absence, I am stepping into his shoes. I have to apologize because Swamiji had been feeding us with such a delicious feast of Swami Vivekananda's characteristics. Now, I don't know how delicious will be my dish. You know, when we are having feast, when too many good things are there and sweets are there, suddenly we would like to taste some pickle so that it will add to the taste of the other things. So similarly, Swamiji had been giving such a sweet account of Swami Vivekananda's glowing character. Today, I will take your mind back to a very, very different level. See, our Sanatana Dharma, in spite of its grand contribution for the human evolution, due to misuse and abuse through millennia, started showing some cracks. What were the cracks? The wonderful theory we were preaching were not being put into practice. And that is the worst that can happen to a religion. When we people will talk so high of things, but that doesn't reflect in our lives, then slowly, the religion loses its capacity to fulfill its role and bring any satisfaction to the people. So Swamiji, during his parikrama and thereafter, he found out, in spite of all these wonderful principles of life which Sanatana Dharma puts before the people, there is a big lacuna. And how to fill up that lacuna? How to bring the essentials of this high principled spiritual awareness to the common people? How to enrich the life of the common people so that they can raise themselves to catch the glimpse of the high-level spirituality. So all these must have started troubling him, and out of his contemplations and knowledge on one side, the global awareness on the other side, his wanderings in India and abroad, the details of human life which came to him. So all this made him give a new formula to our practical dharma. And that is his genius, So we shall today take up one aspect of that Swamiji's approach, that is a modern approach to the religion of service. Why did I call it a religion of service? And that will be part of the topic which I will be talking. So, religion of service. Service is not separated from religion. Religion is not separated from service as well. So Swamiji's genius bring them both together because he found this harmonization can enrich human life, enrich the society, and also enrich our nation. So when we call Swami Vivekananda the reawakener of Hinduism or regeneration of India and things like that, we should understand what are the treatments harmonizing, strengthening, enlightening, so many different types he has used to bring out the best in our Sanatana Dharma to the grasp of the common people and enrich their lives. So, in that connection, I thought we will take up the religion of service. So many aspects are there. Maybe when Swamiji is absent or something, when I have to come before you again and again, we will take up some other aspects. So, Swami Vivekananda raised service to fellow human beings to the level of worship. Where is worship? Usually identified with and practiced as part of religion. See, service was raised into worship so that service also becomes part of the religion. Why did he do that? To meet the most urgent need of the modern society, suffering under the burden of fragmented, unwholesome approach to life and its manifold problems. People had no idea what life is for, where and how to find a goal in life or reach a destination. just living like that, like animals. That is how we were living. So by this beautiful harmonization, what happened? Service to benefited immensely by this because it found itself fitted into the framework of the glorious, time-tested tradition of religion. See, we are all very religious people. India is famous for its religious mentality of the people. So, service, which was a neglected part, when it became added to religion, that also became a very glorious part of religion. Thanks to the Vedantic idealism that he was firmly rooted in, Swamiji could bring about this wonderful harmonization and integration of religion and service. By service, remember, selfless, dedicated work. So, man's internal life and its external manifestation. If we consider religion as man's internal life, then its external manifestation can be service, each replenishing the other and thus providing a rare, wholesome approach. Swamiji himself drew his inspiration from where did he get this sort of an idea? From the life of none other than his master Sri Ramakrishna. Those of us who are familiar with Sri Ramakrishna's life, we can easily understand, our mind will immediately flew to that day when Sri Ramakrishna was conversing with some devotees, Vaishnavas, and he enlightened them. It is Sri Ramakrishna who taught him how to perfuse the whole of one's life with love of God, a love which was not foolish sentimentalism, but rooted in the deep understanding of the spiritual unity of the entire universe and of the oneness of whole that exists. However much we emphasize that word, oneness, the core of Advaita, the core of Hinduism, that oneness, that is what we should fix in our mind. That should be the foundation stone on which we build up our religious, spiritual awareness. Sri Ramakrishna wanted to fill the entire universe with the love of God. Swami Vivekananda, he was a more practical than his master in worldly affairs, wanted to begin from man and sought ways and means of bringing godliness first into the life of man. He wanted men to become more and more aware of the divinity within him. Remember his words, potential divinity, the goal in life is to manifest that divinity. So he wanted men to become more and more aware of one's own divine nature and then learn to manifest the same in our daily life. He acknowledged the capability of each individual and offered a variety of paths. He says, by work or worship or psychic control or philosophy, by one or more or all of them, and be free. So he wanted to give people understanding fully well the innate capacity of a human being to absorb the values in life. So he gave them all this. We call it as the Viveka Sopana. The 4 steps in the Viveka Sopana: Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Raja Yoga, Jnana Yoga. Anyone, according to your mental faculties and your capacities, you can choose whichever step you want. You can use all of them or any of its combinations also. But the goal is to be reached is freedom. This is something which we have to understand, because when we speak of mukti, moksha, etc., somehow in Indian mind, somehow we can grasp the idea. But for a foreigner, mukti, moksha, that doesn't mean anything. So in all his lectures, Swamiji used a wonderful word, which was the talk of the whole Western culture. What was that? Freedom, freedom. Freedom from slavery, freedom from autocracy. Like that, freedom was a word which was known to all of them. So he used the word freedom. He acknowledged the capacity of the individual to work for this freedom. Here in religion, our goal of life was moksha. Anyone can work according to their capacity. But there also he said, to get peace, happiness, freedom, that is what you are all searching, but you don't know that. But to get that, variety of paths are there, work, worship, etc. So that was a little thought-provoking for them. And they started listening to him very, very carefully. By choosing to put work as his first criterion, Swamiji, in a way, emphasized work as the path for the majority. And we know among all these 4 yogas, when somebody speaks to us, we are first ready to catch, yes, maybe we can start with Karma Yoga. Then we can move to the other yogas. So he projected Karma Yoga as a very easy path for the majority. To make this integration more wholesome and fulfilling, Sri Ramakrishna has left behind, as I said earlier, a gem of a thought. What was that gem he has left behind? Shivajnane Jiva Seva, which can light up our lives with a unique glow. Swami Vivekananda, who caught the momentous significance of this utterance, made his own life and works a commentary on this thought of his master. To make it more explicit, Swamiji gave it a simpler form by which everybody can approach. What was that? I call it as one of Swamiji's Mahamantras. Serve God, serve man. Or rather way also, serve man, serve God. Nara Seva, Narayana Seva, Jana Seva, Janardana Seva. Like that, he gave a new combination of these 2 ideals so that he could catch the attention of more and more people. True to his own understanding of the ideal and to need to make it easily comprehensible to one and all without diluting it, at the same time making it applicable to our lives. And that is what thereafter the practical Vedanta, in so many different ways, he brought God nearer to us, or we can say he took us nearer to God without any confusion, without creating any, oh, you are a fanatic or you are very, very fastidious, you are nothing like that. Everyone can have one's own God. Everyone can be godly. God is not an untouchable. God can be brought into our lives, or we can just walk into his presence as well through our work, our thoughts, our yoga. Beautiful. What a genius he was. Anticipating the onslaught of science on religion, forestalling the doubts and suspicions in the minds of even the so-called believers of Sri Ramakrishna, Vivekananda has laid down the foundation for practical Vedanta, which can simultaneously take on the challenge of scientific ratiocination and also a wholesome milieu for the faithful for their self-development with infinite scope for expansion. So those who want to scientifically approach the religious principle, there you are. Whichever you want, where you want. Or you want a spiritual upliftment of oneself through godly contemplations, there you are. So there is absolutely no contradiction at all. Whether you approach through scientific, logical reasoning or through your emotional approach to godliness, no confusion at all. In practical Vedanta, there is hardly anything, any confusing thought. That is the beauty of the Vedanta which he has given to us. This is how realized souls breathe life into their thoughts, words, and deeds, which in turn sets up currents for the purifications of generations. Swamiji has left it 150 years back, but still, these thoughts, when we think of them, act on them, contemplate on them, there is a purification taking place within us. So they set up currents for the purification of generations, to the establishment and strengthening of the forces of dharma for us, for the forces of Sanatana Dharma, of righteousness. Swamiji's Mahavakya, serve man, serve God, also holds within it an extraordinary harmonizing ideal for social upliftment through equally important self-development. And this he later puts on in a different way. We will come to it. By keeping God as the be-all and end-all, Swamiji acknowledges the supremacy of the invisible power controlling the universe. This is the time for us to really understand this, isn't it? The supremacy, we were thinking man is the supreme, his science and technology are the most supreme. But where is this now? A little tiny microscopic, not even microscopic, particle has made the whole world prostrate before it. So no more can anybody say man is truly the ultimate in creation. No, not at all. Social welfare for man's liberty without a spiritual basis or an ultimate spiritual aim doesn't lead anywhere. And even in this corona, you see, those who had some spiritual strength within us, they found more and more, peace, immunity, harmonization than those who did not have any such godly thoughts at all. We have seen political systems which put the cart before the horse, collapsing and ending up in absolute chaos. We have, in our own times, we have seen this. So many countries which were professing of the superior of manly power, how they collapsed. It is too costly a mistake for us to repeat. Spiritual awareness alone can hold us together as one and assure the survival of mankind. Swamiji doesn't insist on anyone to choose a particular god or godliness. He thus made his appeal universal, and Vedic ideals were projected also as something universal, not a particular god, not a particular religious method, nothing like that. The innate divinity, nothing superior than that. So hardly any contradictions were there. By equating man with God, the highest Vedantic ideal of oneness is emphasized, as in it lies the real meaning of, I told you about freedom. What was the freedom for a Westerner in those days? Liberty, equality, and fraternity. When we were students of history and learning about French Revolution, these words were echoing in our minds. India was not yet a free country. So these thoughts had entered into our imagination. What is it? Liberty, equality, and fraternity. I'm talking about 70 years back. This is the greatest gift of our rishis to mankind at large at all times to come. Sooner or later, by whichever path one may choose, man must come to recognize the God within him and learn the art of manifesting that godliness, the real fountainhead of all virtues. All virtues, foundation of all values. Where does it start from? Where did the corona start from? Must be from one single cell. So, what is that single idea from which the whole human emotions, thoughts, work, everything would have started? And that is that godliness. Call it God or something by whichever name you may like to call it. Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadandi, as our teachers have taught us. That is a fountainhead of all virtues. In fact, Hinduism proclaims, and Swamiji underscores this, that manifestation of this divinity is the aim and purpose of all education, of all religion, culture, art. Why? Life itself. Life itself is meant to bring out, manifest this divinity. Lack of this realization is the root of many of the present day ills in our society. Unless spiritual awareness is woven back into the fabric of our society, the future of the world, especially of our great nation, would be very bleak indeed. Why especially our nation? Because our nation had already learned. It had clearly made roadways in the lives of the people and the community and the nation, how to weave into the human life this spiritual awareness. That is why, sometimes I used to tell some people who come abroad, what is the rare fragrance of Indian culture? That is this Advaita, this godliness which pervades art, architecture, music, dance, leave alone religion and spirituality. By stressing on the same word, serve, now we will go back to the serve man, serve God. By stressing on the same word, serve, for both man and God. So, man and God were put on the same platform. Man and God, serve them. So the idea of Sarvatma Bhava is brought about. All great men of realization, exemplified in our living memory by Sri Ramakrishna, were embodiments of this unified comprehension of the entire universe. Science teaches us interconnected, interrelated, interdependent universe. Everything. Parasparam bhavayanta shreya paramavapsyata. Bhagavan teaches us like that. Annad bhavanti bhodani parjanyadanna sambhava, etc., etc. We cannot separate anything and say, no, we don't need it. No, it is not at all possible. To recognize the entire universe as a self is the means of release from all sense of bondage. So that freedom, equality, etc., of which we talked, so to release into that freedom, where do we start? The entire universe as a self. Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam. What a beautiful condensation of the very scientific idea. There is nothing higher than realizing the universe as itself. One realizes this state by excluding the objective world through steadfastness in the eternal Atman. This is an idea beautifully expressed in Viveka Chudamani, 340th verse. To recognize the entire universe as a self is the means of release from all sense of bondage. You are not anymore a small individual. You learn to expand. Swamiji's words again, expansion is life, knowledge is life, love is expansion, and so on. This is the ultimate in understanding. So when you are asked to meditate, where do we start? We start meditating from the body, then to the mind, then to the buddhi, then to the spiritual awareness. Then we conceive of the our home, then we go to the state, world, and the whole of this Brahmanda. So that is the way of expansion. In such a person, the barrier between the objective and subjective collapse, and along with it, what happens? Fear, anxiety, insecurity, loneliness, and all those feelings which torment the human mind, they just collapse. They are washed away. They are burnt away. They have no more any place in your human mind. Thus, Swamiji's formula holds out to us a very simple form of doing the highest sadhana by transforming our humble acts of service of fellow human beings as service of the Almighty, who is present in every being as our own self. We don't have to go to a temple, to a Tirthasthan, pilgrimage, nothing. It is there within you. Where do you want to search? That is what Prahlada, the little boy, told his great father. Father, why you are talking about me? It is there in you also. In everything, wherever I look, I see him. Only you cannot see. What can I do about it? So even the little child has that awareness. So these stories are interwoven in our scripture literature to show how easy it is. If you have a really innocent mind, to conceive of God as a universal presence, it is not at all difficult. Only thing is, we don't have an innocent mind. That is true. By bringing man into the picture, the insufficiency of serving God alone is shown. Insufficiency of serving God alone. See, you may go to temple, you may go to this temple, that temple, and conduct such everybody and things like that. No, that is not enough. Religion starts degenerating. I told you earlier, there was a degeneration point in our Hindu culture. Where did we start? Religion starts degenerating when we enshrine God only in places of worship. Then what happens? Establish systems of worship. Then engage mediators to do worship on our behalf. So we'll make an offering, ask so and so, you do chant this and pray for my family, my child's welfare, my this, that, and like that. To save mankind from the clutches of institutionalized religion, Swami Vivekananda comes out with this revolutionary idea, a very, very new form of worship, of approaching God through the proper channel of man. Swamiji asks, whom do you worship? Worship man, because in him is the God present in its best form. In practice, it would mean accommodating everybody in our love, in our compassion, and in our service. It would mean understanding all as the creation of the same Lord Almighty. So taking the mind to the Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam level. It would mean serving man as a moving temple of Narayana. Moving temple of Narayana. We can take care of animals, dogs, this, that, but we don't have the heart to see the sufferings of the little children, little orphans. So how, imagine the contradiction comes. So Swamiji wanted to remove all these contradictions from human life, which are the points where your life loses its spiritual value. So seeing this oneness, feeling the oneness, that was most important for him. It would mean seeing man as a moving temple of Narayana. The expansion of oneself in spiritual vision, as also the experience of the Sarvatma Bhava, are possible if we learn to serve man, to serve God. Jnana, Bhakti, Karma are harmonized in this expression in a very beautiful way. Identity of man and God comes through jnana. Service of God through bhakti, and that of man through karma. All of them have to be blended together in the life of man, each enriching the others. Inlaid in the formula is also the sense of renunciation, without which no act of man can never be raised to the service of God. This is a very, very important lesson for us to learn. No act of man can, can be raised to the service of God without renunciation. Tyagena mridatvamanasya. It's a very, very ideal of insight. Unless there is renunciation in you, then the question will come, what to renounce, isn't it? To elevate man's work into an offering, Swamiji brings out the formula. I said earlier, he brings out another Mahamantra. Atmano mokshartham jagat hitayacha. Many of us work often with sincerity, hard work we do, but unwillingly with a mind totally out of tune with the work at hand. Yes, I have to go to the office 8 o'clock. Sometimes I met the other day a person who has to go by bus, changing 3 buses. He leaves the home at 6 o'clock from one particular mid-Travancore to go to Trivandrum and come back, reaches home at 10 o'clock. See, because yes, I am working in Infosys. I am working in this place, that place. So 7 hours a day you spend in traveling. So many of us work. Sometimes it is very hard also. We do not find any joy in our work, yet work on. Why? To earn a livelihood. I have to look after my family. We have forgotten that each and every action can be chiseled out to be a means for a deep inner awakening or inner fullness. That even a simple work, when properly executed with a proper mental attitude, can take on the hues of offering, of service, benefiting not only oneself, but also the humanity at large. In this connection, I always remember our father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi's salt satyagraha. Those of you who may remember, by taking a handful of seawater, allowing it to solidify into salt, he challenged the British Empire, which finally led to their non-colonization of our country. Not only that, more than 100 nations benefited by that. It was a very small action, but done with such absolute surrender, absolute sticking to truth and dharma, that the gods will pave the way, as we say, you know. What could be the significance of this utterance? What is the utterance? Swamiji says, national ideals of India are renunciation and service. Intensify her in these channels and the rest will take care of itself. This is his inimitable way, Swamiji exhorts. No? How do these ideals help man to achieve his ultimate goal in life? How would it help him to hold, how can we consider them as our national ideals and so on? To the uninitiated, the words appear to have different meanings, as renunciation denotes an abstract ideal or valuation in the mind, and service relates to an aspect of man's day-to-day life and work. But in essence, they are one and influence the entire range of human possibilities. That is Swamiji's special ideals for us. It is well known, let us now examine how they are connected. It is well known that all our actions originate from the thought processes in the mind. It is also true that actions, though they have their field outside, are also capable of leaving their impressions on the mind. Thus, purity or impurity of the minds get reflected in the actions, and conversely, the quality of actions influence the mind. If those of you have read Swamiji's Karma Yoga, the earlier chapters about vasanas, this become very, very clear. Being thus the obverse and reverse of the same coin, renunciation and service have a significant bearing on the development of the entire human personality. One in whom these two ideals merge emerges as a man among men. You know, he always say, man with capital M, who stands out. Swamiji, when he used to enter in the British audience, some meeting or something, people will say, my, here comes a prince among saints. Eh? That is how he looked. Only a mind of utmost purity and subtlety can hold and retain truth. To achieve this, the mind must get rid of all that which prevents its expansion and growth. What is it which prevents this expansion? Our clinging attachments to our worldly interests. It may be family, it may be some other possessions, anything. It can be any worldly attachment. By clinging on to it, we disturb our mind's expansion. Swamiji's oft-quoted words, all expansion is life, contraction is death, provides a valuable clue to this fact of nature. Just as the impurities enmeshed in a block of ice settle down when it melts into the expanded liquid form and get more purified as it expands from its self-centeredness to the subtler realm of universal identification. With expansiveness comes greater pervasiveness, rarefication, and consequent purification. Now, how, just listen to this sentence very carefully. The mind made of the substance of thought flow. What is a mind? It is a thought flow. The mind made of the substance of thought flow can be purified only through thought processes. Those of you who have watched a weaver weaving a piece of cloth, if there is some disturbance come, what he will have to do? He has to remove that line, put another thread and weave it back into the structure. You cannot just cut off that line or cut at the block, then the cloth will be defective. So in the same way, our mind, which is a flow of thoughts, if it can be purified, we have to send another system of positive, kindly thoughts so that it goes and washes the other thing away. The mind made of the substance of thought flow can be purified only through thought processes. The small self, we are all concerned with our small self, I, which fills up the human mind with all its poisonous tentacles of bondages which tie the human personality down, obstructing its blossoming into its fuller stature. That has to be plucked out and removed. Through the process of renouncing self at the thought level, slowly but steadily, the non-self, that is the capital self, establishes itself and percolates down to the level of actions. So the small I am doing this, I am the author of this, I am the master of this. That small I will go, and that I, how will transform itself? Sri Krishna tells Arjuna, Nimitta matram bhava sabhyasachin. Yad karoshi, yad asnasi, yad juhoshi, yad juhoshi dadasi, yad tapasyasi kaunteya, tad kurishva madarpanam. That small I, let it be there. If you do not know how to remove that I, if it refuses to go, you tell, okay, you sit there, but I will put a new dress on you. And that new dress will be Nimitta Matram Bhavasabhyasajin. Through the process of renouncing this self, we will give it a new personality. With the complete surrender of this small self at the altar of the greater self, capital self, man finally attains his fulfillment. What is to be renounced is the question which has tormented many a sincere seeker. Lord Krishna demonstrated it in his life and explained it in the Gita. Are our actions, our work, or our labor to be renounced? Answer is definitely no. Let us open our eyes and look at this vast universe. It is filled with actions. So many things, Seed grows, sprouts into a tree, and then on the tree comes branches, leaves, etc. Then the flowers, and the flowers. Untold are the infinite, are the ways in which the universe is moving around. Wonderful creation, the inherent rhythm therein, and the movement. There is not a still moment in the whole universe. It doesn't stop. The galaxies, the planets, the stars, animals, trees, and even the rocks are moving, changing, sometimes at terrific speed, at other times almost imperceptibly. Constant movement is a very law of nature. Incessant actions and interactions are in the very nature of things. If action or work is an inalienable part of creation, is it to be renounced? No, Krishna is definitely advising Arjuna, no. We find the answer again in the Gita. What is to be renounced is not the action itself, but the attachment to the fruits thereof. Karmanyevadhikaraste ma bhaleshu kadachana. Work should flow out as a natural expansion of Swadharma, without any personal motivation, desire, or manifestation of self-will. For this, there is only one way, renunciation of the small I and its replacement with the bigger universal I. To achieve this, one should first become aware of the subtle vibrations of actions at the very depths of our personality. Karma Brahmodbhavam Vidhi, Brahmakshara Samudbhavam, Tasmat Sarvagatam Brahma, Nityam Yajne Pradishthana. All our actions have to be transformed into yajna. One should learn to recognize in these life impulses the expression of the immaculate life, Brahmodbhavam Vidhi, life principle itself, and then try to remove them from these all stains of selfish motivations, egoistic doership, and dedicate all of these in utter silence at the feet of the Master within. Through this renunciation, I and mine get transformed into thee and thine. That is why in our Vedic literature, idam namama, idam namama. The awareness that all are his, nothing is mine, dawns on the doer and gives him an exquisite taste for work and service. Actually, at this point, there is nothing called work. It's only service of the Lord. If on the other hand, one prefers to move along the path of service, then also the first step is elimination of the self through dedicated, desireless actions. I, my, mine, they have to be removed. Constant vigil of thoughts, words, and actions slowly rid them of the contamination of the self and make them more and more universal and pure. Result is disinterestedness in the fruits of action, and work gets done for the sake of work. Bereft of anxiety for result, relieved from the burden of past joys and sorrows, the same work starts yielding a rare joy. Just like a bud blossoms into a beautiful flower. After its role is over, the flower drops off and the fruit starts emanating. That is a joy. Wherever you see in the creation, there is a joy of creation. What is the joy in the creation? This selfless work dedicated to the Almighty. Work becomes spontaneous and meaningful. Self-will gets replaced by greater and greater, more potent will, till at last one gets fully transformed into his instrument. Whose instrument? His, God's instrument. With this, there comes the release from misery, thraldom, and shackles of work. This is the real freedom of which Swamiji was speaking. Then karma turns into karma yoga and becomes the vehicle to take man to his fulfillment in service. The great miracle happens. This is the miracle our rishis have found out. What is the great miracle? The I gets transformed into a zero, but finds itself filled with the infinite. Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamachyate Purnamsya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vadishyate. When the I is removed from our personality, it's become filled with another Purna I. That is something the greatest gift of India to the world, you know. There is nothing called zero. When you really become a zero, you find you are filled with something else. This awareness of unity, this miracle of love, and this saga of service are what all the great teachers have preached to mankind from time immemorial. If these great principles, which govern the very laws of nature, could become the three sides of our prism of life, we can also capture the eternal light and beautifully, colorfully, and harmoniously let it flow through our humble lives. So that should be our offering to Swami Vivekananda. This is what teaches us how to start with a small I and grow through work, through knowledge, to service, to sacrifice, renunciation, service, whatever may be. This I should not have any place in us. Everything is thine, thine, thine. And then we will be taken into the lap of that great Almighty. That is our real place. So, Swami Vivekananda gives us the wonderful Viveka Sopana, climbing which we can reach to that potential divinity within. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Didi. It is a journey of a sadhaka or a drop coming in touch with the ocean. Wonderfully explained through the teachings of Swamiji. And if only we can efface or erase that ego and become one with the flow, the destination or the goal of life will become complete. Thank you once again, Didi. We will meet next week. By the time Swamiji will be coming back, the divine touch of Swamiji, we will listen from Veerabhadramji Maharaj. So till then, we will conclude with a Shanti mantra. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayah, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukkha bhagvavi. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We will meet next time. Wait. बड़की अम्मा के तरफ आई भगवान
Lexmi